you're able to touch people's life that you don't even realize sometimes, just
Yeah.
because you stop by and you said, "Hi, how are you? What are you doing? What is it that you're doing?" And ask questions and just listen to them.
You're now listening to the Let's Talk About Life podcast, brought to you by Don't Settle, with your host, Harrison King. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Let's Talk About Life podcast. My name is Harrison King, and it's a very exciting day. We've got a special guest. Today's guest is probably one of the most interesting people you'll ever get to hear from. In my opinion, he's served his country in the Royal Canadian Airforce for 33 years. He's received the highest level of Canadian military decoration as Commander to the Order of Military Merit, the Canadian Decoration Meritorious Service Cross, and 2 U.S. Legion of Merit medals. It's a lot of stuff. In 2016, after many years of dedicated service and leadership, he was promoted to the Chief Operating Officer, or the Commander, or the Major General of the Royal Canadian Air Force. He was responsible for leading all Canadian Air Force operations with 11,000 staff, 300 helicopters, and across 11 locations. He directed multiple global operations and training exercise deployments, including national security, humanitarian disaster relief, anti-drug, and force protection efforts. He redirected organizational objectives to improve focus on protecting North America against external threats. Yes, you heard that right. This man was one of the people in charge of protecting North America from external threats and received multiple awards for outstanding performance and contributions to both national and global security. You know, it doesn't get much more impressive than that. To top it all off, he's not only participated in, but completed 10 Ironman triathlons and 26 marathons. He's a father to 3 sons, and at the age of 47, he said that he finally met his soulmate because it's never too late. At the age of 55, right now, after already leading an extremely full life, he says that he has had a great adventure in the Air Force and would do it all over again, but the military has indeed taken its toll on his personal life. He's an incredible family man, genuine person, and distinguished leader, and says that life is simple. Treat others the way that you want to be treated, always work hard, give your best, and finish what you started. Christian Drouin, welcome, and thanks so much for being here.
Oh, King, Harrison, this is this is quite the introduction. You're as you're going through my life like this. It's I can see the video going around, and what I can say is that you make me feel really old.
No, just experienced. You've accomplished a lot, that's for sure. This is so exciting to have you here. I hope I didn't miss any of the important things you want to talk about, but I don't want. I'm sure someone of what you've accomplished don't always like to be seen as just your job, right? Because you've done so many other things. One of the things that first off comes to mind is 10 Ironmans. Is that correct? 10 Ironmans?
Yeah, 10 Ironmans, and I started triathlon was about, I think it was like 27.
Wow.
And so it's going to be about, I think it's going to be 30 years soon. And so I started with shorter distances. I started with marathons.
Yeah.
I always wanted to run a marathon, and I started with marathons, and then it was taking its toll. A lot of running obviously
Right.
takes its toll on your limbs and stuff. And
For sure.
I was invited to do a team triathlon, like a small distance triathlon, short distance triathlon, and I got the bug. I said, this is cool, because now it brings the three dimensions, and it's more than that.
Right.
Now you got you got the 4 dimension of weight training plus
sure.
nutrition and things. And so putting it in there, was quite the. I found it like it was quite the challenge. And I completed 10 Ironman. I stopped counting the number of triathlon overall, the half Ironman distance, but still to this day, like right now, unfortunately, this year everything was pretty much came to a halt because of COVID.
Right.
And but next year I'm lined up for 2 full distance Ironman and 3 half Ironman starting in April next year. If fingers crossed,
That's right.
if things come back a little bit more to normal. Yeah.
How do you push through something like that? Like, lots of people don't even just like running, let alone doing three big exercise things, and then the Ironman is so much more than just a triathlon. How do you mentally overcome some of that stuff, like pushing yourself when you're just like, I've had enough?
Well, first of all, it's anyone can do it, right?
Oh,
It's
for sure,
just
yeah.
it's mind over matter, and it's
Mm,
and then you go through the training. So my philosophy is that if you go through the proper training before once you hit the if you're lucky enough to make it to the start line, because there's so much involved before that all it's you have to juggle everyday life
right,
to get in your training and things like that, and then injuries, illnesses, whatever happens in your in day-to-day life. And then so if you make it to the start line healthy and with minimum training required, that you feel confident
right.
that you've done what's required, and then it's just the execution. You need to
Mm,
have a plan and a plan B, because you can have a flat tire, a puncture, or whatever,
right.
something can happen. And then, but it's just at that point, it becomes just the will of keeping going one step. It sounds, a bit, you'll hear that a lot. It's one step after the other, but in the marathon, that we're at that point, that's what it
That's
is.
right. Do you think any
Yeah.
of that, you're saying you have to have the will and just decide you're going to do it. Do you think any of that comes from your experience in the military?
Yeah, I think I think it goes. It's from a lot further than that. It's the way I was brought up.
Oh, okay.
As
Yeah.
you said initially, you said, the basic values that my parents inculcated in us and my brother and I is that you always finish what you start, and you
Mm,
treat people the way you want to be treated. And if they're very basic values, and but if you remind yourself of that, throughout your whole life and your career, then for me was like the first thing is wanted to do a marathon. For me was like that was the big deal. So
right.
once I did that, I was okay. So what's next, right?
Mm,
And obviously, in order to be the I guess to answer your question about the link to the military is the discipline, right? The discipline to be
right.
able to day in day out accomplish that training, getting up in the morning at 4:30, whatever time you need to do to get up to get that done. Because if you don't get your training done in the morning, in the kind of job that I did, it's not going to happen during the day. Even if you
Right.
have a slot time at lunch, you say, "Hey, I got an hour there," and something happens always.
For
And then you, I never, I ate at my desk my whole life, my whole career,
Wow.
and I'm still doing it at home now. So I maximize my time at the office so that I can do something else, right, with
Right.
family or whatever.
Wow. I'd like to talk, assuming you're interested in discussing a little bit about decision making,
Hmm.
because that's obviously something that you had to do a lot of, and I am assuming some things because I don't know the full story, but being essentially one of the heads of the Air Force, right, in Canada for quite a few years. Obviously, you had a lot of decisions to make. You had a lot of people you're in charge of. We don't have to talk about the specifics of that, but dealing with making big decisions like that, like how is that, what's that like, and how do you go about addressing things like that?
So first of all, just to put the record straight, I wasn't in charge of the Royal Canadian Air Force as a whole. That
Hmm,
that was
yes.
my that was my boss. I was the second,
Yeah.
if you want. And where I was, there are two air divisions in Canada. One that is focused on the training of all the air crews, pilots, and all the training.
Hmm.
And the other air division, one Canadian Air Division, is the one I was in command of for 3 years until the end of my career from 2016 to 19. And that's the one that's got 300 helicopters and an
Right. Yeah.
airplane across Canada. And it serves to the service of domestic operations, as you said, and also the defense of the airspace over North America
Hmm.
within the NORAD environment, and also providing forces to all the expeditionary missions that we have around the world.
Right.
So that and that decision process that comes along is like the beauty of uh, it's like to put this in perspective is like, when I joined the Air Force, I wanted to be a helicopter pilot.
Okay.
That was my thing, right? I didn't join the Air Force to become a general officer and to
Right.
become the Royal Canadian Air Division commander. That was, I didn't even know that existed. I just
Yeah.
wanted to fly helicopter, right?
Yeah.
And then you're then they teach you how to be an officer first, and then you move into the realm of your skill set while you're in there, and then they teach you how to be a pilot. And part of the pilot training, you learn how to make the the hard decisions sometimes, right? What do you do if you lose your engine? What do you do if you have a electrical fire? What do you
Right.
do and things like that? So that decision making process is ingrained in you very, very early. And you know, from that point on, you would have told me, "Hey, Chris, in 25 years, you'll be in charge of the whole operational Air Force in Canada." I would have laughed at you. I would have gone, "Are
Right.
you nuts?" And it's like huge. It's like so big.
Right.
So as you grow into your role and you get experience, it's like the frog in the hot water, right?
Mm.
You heard that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the frog will get used to water being hotter and hotter and hotter until.
Right.
But I didn't get to that point, fortunately. But so that's part of that process where you become accustomed to making bigger decisions.
Mhm.
But the beauty is that you're not alone. You have a process. You have someone providing you with um, uh, all the documentation and or
Right.
the facts around whatever decision you have to make and different options and so on. So the military is extremely well disciplined in putting courses of action together
Mhm.
with the pros and cons and things like that. So once a decision comes to me as a commander, uh, there's a lot of things that have been uh, ironed out,
Right.
and it's a lot clearer. So to
Yeah.
inform my decision, the ground stuff has been done already.
For
A
sure.
long answer, but it's a progression through time where
Right.
when you look at it's like you making your own decision about some things that could seem small right now, but in a few years you'll be up to great things.
Right.
Harrison, and I'll be interviewing you.
Well, thank you. This is interesting to think about because the way you said that it's almost like, and I would assume this is the case. The decision making at that level when you're kind of more at the top than when you're starting out is essentially the same thing, just higher stakes, obviously, and different things. But you said you've learned, you know, like an engine failure or even smaller than that. What the decision making process is, and then you just carry that up with you. And would you say that in a way the decision making process is not much different, no matter how much is at stake, or what the difference is in the outcome, or what you're working with?
Is your process is very similar. I could define rapidly two types of decision that you have to make. You have the decision that you have to make right now.
Right.
You have no time. It's based on training. It's life and death. You're having someone cut you off on the highway, and and you got to make a decision.
Right.
There's a truck that jackknifes in front of you. You got to make a decision. Those are
Yes.
the kind of decision that you're based on your training. And as you said, you're in a helicopter. You have a tail rotor failure. You have to react right away,
Yeah.
because if you don't, you won't survive.
Right.
So those are the first type of decision that are ingrained in you. It's like the human being, you're fight or flee, right? And then there's the other type of decision where you have more time, and um, that's when you have time to assess some of the all the factors and things like that. Sometimes you have all the time in the world to make the right decision,
Right.
but sometimes it's also the decision having to be made in a timely fashion where you might not have all the factors. you'll be, and at the level that I was, that happens a lot where you're in the gray area.
Right.
Nothing is absolutely black and white.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a decision that it's an easy one. You have to assume some risks, and that's where the experience. Uh, that's why people at that position at that level
Mm-hmm.
are paid the big bucks, as they say, because
Right.
based on the all this experience, this life experience and professional experience, they're able to make that decision without having all the information,
For
and
sure.
that's the one. Those are the ones that are the most difficult.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing that comes to mind is you were saying, obviously there's lots of, it's very disciplined, the military, and but you're saying it's kind of a communal thing. Like you're not the only one making the decision. There's been, steps coming up to you getting there. There's people helping you out. I'm trying to relate this, I guess, a little more to, I would say everyday life for the average person, right? Most of us aren't making those kind of decisions. But having a group of people or support and stuff like that is would you say that's definitely like a key factor?
Yeah, well, it's very similar, right? It's just at a different level. And it's I would say it's very, very much comparable. I mean, before you make a important life decision, what are you gonna do? You're gonna talk to your
For sure.
parents, your friends. You're gonna get different type of opinions and stuff like that. You're gonna weigh them in and make your own decision, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, very
what
similar.
what's been the most one of the hardest, I guess, things of what you've been through? All of you've done a lot, right, in your life. Really challenging situations or things that you've had to deal with, and how do you find you've been able to overcome these obstacles? Because you've been through some things for sure. So what what is your kind of, I guess, coping mechanism, or what have you used to get yourself to over those obstacles?
So that's a very good question. There's a lot of things that have happened in my life, in my career, as you said. I can relate, if you want to relate to something that is in the action, like something military action. For instance, back in 2010 in August, if I remember well, it's the 6th of August, 2010. I was in Afghanistan as the wing commander, so I was in charge of the Air Force, Canadian Air Force deployed there,
Mm,
and for I was there for about 10 months. And that day I was the escort, so I was still flying as a helicopter pilot, and I was we we have a uh, we have a Chinook helicopter, the one with the big tandem rotors,
hmm.
that was flying the mission, like just transport mission with the goods on board and people, and then we put two Griffin helicopters, Bell 412, with guns and to protect it, right, as escort. And so I was one of the two. So I was in charge of the Griffin weapons team that we called it,
Hmm.
and so the two of them in protection of that Chinook. And while the Chinook, we were in transit to one of the forward operating bays to deliver something. Then the Chinook got shot down right in front of me, like about 200 feet ish,
Wow.
where it was a lucky shot. The AK-47 that insurgent had just a lucky shot and hit the rear ox tank and exploded, and there was fuel in the main tank, and then the whole helicopter was engulfed in flames within seconds, and the guys were able to land the helicopter straight ahead in the field, and we didn't lose any life, but we lost
Wow.
the helicopter. There was 21 people on board. They were able to exit with only minor
Mm,
injuries, and the question is, no, I wasn't able to catch the bad guy because they were hiding in tunnels. We couldn't find anything. So anyway, uh, now you can imagine, now I'm in charge of the whole thing
right.
for the air wing in Afghanistan, and this happens right in front of me. There's nothing we can do about it. The guys really reacted properly, but at that point, you got to do your training kicks in.
Right.
And one of the things I didn't tell you is that during my pilot training, one of my instructor always told me, when something happens, you have an emergency, just hit your clock. There's always a clock, just a normal time
Mm-hmm.
clock, and hit it to reset it. And it's just going to give you 1 second to sort of take a breath and think and say, okay, what next? And
Right.
then so you lower the heart rate, you take it calm and you go through the process
For sure.
and you do what you need to do. But then after that, you have to deal with the aftermath of this.
Right.
So we lost the helicopter there. We had six of them. We lost one within about one day. I'll show you the video. I have it on video because we had cameras on board the helicopter, and
Mm-hmm.
we also had a UAV that was filming it. And within 20 minutes, it was all consumed.
Wow.
All this. Then I went back to once everybody was safe and stuff. Went back to the camp, and I had to deal with the aftermath with back home, providing the proper information for the
Mm-hmm.
prime minister and everybody else and so on. So it's all of this, it's all based on, and I think that day was like 55 degrees outside, and
Mm.
you put all the environment together, dusty and so on. So that's one of the event that I had, that was where training kicks in and all your experience, and you just go through it and manage it. For the for someone not used to it, it could become a big thing, but for us, it was just going through the process and relying on your training. There's other events that are more eventful in your life, like going. Uh, I've been gone a lot in my military life, and as you said, it had an impact on my personal life.
Yeah.
So went through a divorce, and when you went through this, well, then it's like anybody else who goes through some sort of an event like that. So how do you go through life with keeping focus on what you need to do as well at work,
Yeah.
managing your family, the transition, and things like that, and doing it to the best of your abilities. And that's again, it's there's no one formula for that, and I don't wish that on anyone. But
No.
that's another example of being able to use, stay calm, look at the options, do what's right, and then move on.
Yeah, like you said, there's no, one strategy for any kind of, experience, or in, I mean, I guess anything in general, but for that kind of thing, for yourself, what was it? Was it most of that, kind of training kind of kicking in your, even in your personal life, to get, to get through things, and to deal with all of this that was going on? Were you able to find, I guess, a good support system, or, because obviously these are challenging things to go through alone. So how were you able to, get through that, if you're willing to share?
Yeah, well, I think that it would obviously the military training brings something that becomes ingrained in yourself once you've been uh, you've been part of it for long enough. But I have to say that in some of those life events, I think that you rely a lot on your excuse me, you rely a lot on your life experience, your past experience, and
Mm,
what's been ingrained into you by your
right.
parents.
Hmm.
Your parents, your brother, your friends, the way you've been living your life until then, and then as you said, you rely on people you can count on,
Yeah.
and then you realize also that good friends. Dad always said that really good friends you can count on one hand. So that's when you can see those real friends coming out and helping out, and then you have to that's I guess that's the best answer I can give you. I'm pretty sure that you can rely, um, eh, knowing your family, you can rely on a good family
For
support
sure.
for life experiences like this, and I was fortunate enough to have that as well.
Yeah,
But yeah, go
you've
ahead. Yeah.
mentioned your family, or your parents specifically, several times here, and it's interesting to me because, I think a lot of people, when you think of somebody who's, been successful in the ways that you have, think, don't always directly relate it back put to that, and it sounds like you do. You really, you credit lots of what you've achieved and what you've experienced in life to where you started. And even before, we started this, you sent something and was just saying that your parents ingrained things in you at such a a young age, and that's just what you've known. How has that impacted your life?
Well, you summarize it well, because you look at I think one of the things that I always kept in mind throughout my life is you got to stay grounded, right?
Mm,
And the best way to stay grounded is to stay connected with your family and your basic values, and never forget that. And as I said, it's my basic values, like treat other people like you want to be treated.
yeah,
So if sometimes you're sitting there in your big office as the commander, and someone comes in, and you've been really busy, you're tired, and they come in with some sort of a problem that could seem very benign, and you're tempted to
right.
just push, and then it's like you take a deep breath and you go, no, you want to treat other people the way you want to be treated. So
Mm,
you stop, sit down, listen, and properly listen, and then go with what you need to do. And it's I guess what I'm saying is that you never want to forget where you come from. I come
right.
from humble beginnings, and our country, Canada, is a great country. It allows anyone living, any Canadian citizen, to be able to explore their potential. And it's like, if you look at the big institutions that we have, I'm talking here about the military and the Air
Hmm.
Force per se. That's my experience. But if as you can see, I have a thick accent. I didn't speak English before I joined the military, very little.
Mm,
They taught me how to speak English and so on. And then um, from there, I kept having opportunities. So I went from a kid from a rural background, and to what I did through opportunities that our great country allowed me to do by
right.
my potential, right? So you have to keep that in mind throughout your life, because it's not because you're there now that you know, who does that make you if you're not respectful to the people and the process that allow you to get there?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think that's something that a lot of people can start to overlook, especially if you start to become successful, with whatever it is, and you get to focus on what's going on right then. But for sure, what you've created and how well loved you are. I also know it comes from that for sure, because you want to motivate people, and when you don't treat others like you would want to be treated, even like you're saying you were at the rank that you were, and then somebody else that comes in, and it seems like a problem that's not so important or whatever to you, but for them, it might be, something that they've been really thinking about. And that's a really interesting point, and especially coming from, like I said, someone who, has had the role that you have. You obviously carry that through everything you do.
I got to tell you, I still have, after being retired now for a year and a half, and working out of Texas, I still get plenty of communications via Facebook or emails and whatnot, from people sometimes that I don't remember, and they come
Mm,
up and they say, "Hey, sir, you remember we did that, da, da, da. You took the time to stop and say hi or talk to me and think." And I'm going, "Wow, it's a lot of fun." And I shared that with Nicole, and we're going, "Oh, you're able to touch people's life that you don't even realize sometimes, just
yeah.
because you stop by and you said, 'Hi, how are you? What are you doing? What is it that you're doing?' And ask questions, and just listen to them. And it enriches your life as well so much. That's what I miss the most.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would agree for sure.
yeah.
It's interesting you just said, listen to them, because obviously you're somebody who has a lot to share, and but sometimes I would assume what can be most, impactful to some people is just having you just listen. A lot of, I think a lot of, at least our society, how it's kind of based is once you kind of start to, let's say class wise or whatever, you start to move your way up, more money, whatever it is. And you start to forget about, those things, those personal connections. Because really, I guess in the grand scheme of things, we're all just people, and it doesn't really matter what you're up to or anything. And maintaining those connections is probably one of the most important things.
It is. So just to give you an example, is that I'll give you an example that is palatable. Also at the same time give you a taste of what my life was as a commanding officer, for instance. So I was a commanding officer of 427 Special Ops Aviation Squadron in Petawawa, Ontario. So that's back in 2006 to 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go from having your own family of how many, whatever, 2, 3 people at home to 300.
Right.
And that's the way I saw that, right?
Wow.
It's like now, okay, I'm in charge of these 300 people and their families, and I got to make sure that it is an honor and a privilege, but at the same time, you have all this responsibility. So I could go, let's say I would go flying, and I would tell my admin assist that I would go flying at least 2 to 3 times a week, and as to maintain my currency and so on, but also to be able to fly with all the gals and guys working for me, so I can understand their, where we sit, readiness level, if you want, and things
Right.
like that, and be able also for them to see the old man and fly with him and so on. So the example I want to give you is that to go from my office to where I would sign my book, to sign the book of the aircraft and go flying, physically would take me walking probably 3 minutes ish.
Mm-hmm.
But for me to leave my office and go to the flight planning room and do everything like this, instead of taking 3 minutes, would take me most of the time 30 to 45 minutes,
Wow.
because I would go around and stop to talk to people. Initially, people were not used to that, right?
Yeah.
And but then we take the time to stop and say, "Hey, how are you?" And then they say, "Well, oh, sir, I'm okay." And then, no, really, what are you doing? What's going on? And then as you're doing this, people realize that you actually mean it, and
Yeah.
that you'll listen to them. So then they start talking to you, meaning that they're talking to you about their issues.
Right.
So now it would take me, so I would tell my AA, when I go flying, you got to book at least an hour to an hour and a half before my flying, because the time I make it there, I'll talk to people, and it's going to take me more time. And
Right.
then people start talking to you. So when you walk by them, instead they actually talk to you. They stop you. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
sir, no, what about this, and so on. So you got to take the time. So that's something that I really loved it. But it takes your day that could be an 8-hour day because when you go back to your office at 4 or 5 in the afternoon after flying, you still have to do your work.
Right.
So you're not out of there before 7:30, 8, 9 o'clock, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Hence the impact on the family, right? So you need to be
For
able to
sure.
balance that.
Yeah.
So
Would you say that, because you went out of your way to do that kind of thing, you didn't just walk your 3 minutes, to go flying. You took the time. Was the work that you were doing more successful and better because of that, because of the kind of community that you were able to create?
absolutely, Harrison, it's the success to a lot of uh, a lot of my career. It's,
Wow.
it's based on on just that, the human relationship, where I would and I did that as a wing commander as well. So now I went from 300 to, I can't remember, 1,500 people, and but I took the time to write a birthday card to all of them every year.
Wow.
So and not electronically, handwritten. And as I get to know people, I could write something personal in there.
Huh.
and say hi to Nicole, for me, and think the
For
wife
sure.
or something. How are your kids doing? Blah, blah, whatever. And then so it takes time, but there's and I can give you an example. You also take care of your people in the sense that we had, the the business that I was in. You have low times and high times. So
Right.
sometimes, when you have forest fires or you have floods in Canada and you have to work 24/7, and the people are out the door and fixing helicopters in the
Yeah.
middle of the night and things like that. And then, but sometimes, you have in the middle of the summer where it's very calm and there's not a lot going on. So then I would let go my people. I would let them
Hmm.
take some time off and things like
Right.
that. But so when it was time though to go out there, and I didn't have to ask. They would just
They were
do it.
there.
They would move mountains
Hmm.
without having to ask them because they knew that I was going to take care of them after that and give them
Yeah.
some time back with their families and things like that. So that's I guess a good example of human resource management. Treat people well, the way you want to be treated.
For sure. Like it's not,
As he,
especially being a leader, right? And whatever kind of leader it is, if you see yourself as being different than everybody else, then you're not gonna accomplish what you want to, right? That's quite a phenomenal thing to hear, and it sounds like you attribute most of what you've gone through, what you've done to not yourself necessarily, but everybody else around you.
Absolutely. I'm not very good academically. I got a bachelor and a master's degree, but I can't say I'm really strong in school. I've never been. I've done it by sheer work.
Mm-hmm.
Get through it. But to me, that my success are 90% related to the people around me that enabled me to accomplish what I was able to accomplish. It's truly yeah, that's I mean, yes, I had to learn how to fly helicopters and fly planes and then helicopters to make my way to the wings, become an officer.
Yeah,
But after that, it all became people management and doing things together,
for
which
sure.
and they wanted to, I guess they felt comfortable as me as the leader, and it kept opening other doors.
Right. I guess if there's the one thing that I would say based on this that people should take away from what you're saying is that you need to make sure you have a strong group of people around you, important people like you said, your friends, you should be able to close friends count on one hand and just maintain those relationships, make that the priority and everything else will come.
There's something else you want to add to this is that you want to surround yourself with different type of people and personality.
Mm,
You don't want to associate yourself with only people that you get along with,
right.
because then you have this phenomenon of the yes men around you or yes women, and everybody agreeing to the same solution.
Right.
I loved having more experienced people with me. For instance, when I went to Afghanistan, I asked my first boss when I was a line pilot in Quebec City. My first boss, I asked him. I went. He was a reservist at the time, almost retired. I went to him to his house and asked
Hmm.
his wife and said, I would love to have him come as my chief of staff because now I know that I have this guy, and also he was 6'5", and
Wow.
and and having him, as someone who could put his hand on my shoulder and say, "Hey, what are you doing?" Right?
Right.
And did you think about this? What
Hmm.
because I'm a hot-blooded French Canadian, so sometimes I get excited, and having someone to wrap his arm around me and say, "Hey, come here," not obnubilated by the rank or the position. So and also diversity around you, right?
For
I
sure.
love having all kinds of people. And the beauty about our military, although a lot of people don't know this or listen too much to the some of the whatever media or whatnot, but there's the Canadian military and the Air Force, particularly the Air Force, is a representation of our society in Canada.
Mm.
And you'll walk in a squadron in Trenton, Ontario, and you'll see uh, uh, the diversity is immense. It's everything. You'll see every type of religion, women, French, English, whatever language, and so on. And it's everybody's working hand in hand. And if you, as a leader, if you don't surround yourself with all this different type of experience and knowledge, you're failing. You're failing yourself, not only yourself, but the organization and the institution.
Wow.
So that was also I think one of the secret in my career.
Yeah, the diversity of people and opinions, right? Around you.
Yeah.
Because you, especially, doing what you're doing, you need to have all sides, and it can't be just you being excited about things, like you said.
Yeah.
For sure. Is there anything, any last kind of things you wanna share with the people that are checking this out? While we've got you here, anything else that comes to mind that, based on what you've been through, anything advice or anything?
Well, my advice is that, I'm not too sure who your audience is, but what I can say is that, if I could, I would go through my career in the same fashion, i.e., I love the experience that I had everywhere I went to, all the missions I've done, things I've done in my life, and so on. What I would do better is have a more of a balanced approach, and I think that the younger generations right now, I think, have a better approach to this. Although when you get to this higher level of responsibilities, it takes a lot out of you and your time. But so the way I was been able to cope about it is what you said, initially is about the Ironman, about the triathlon and things like that.
Yeah.
Is that I was always able to, if you got to stay fit, you got to take care of yourself, you got to eat properly, and you got to sleep properly, and so if you do everything in well balanced, although when you look at being a triathlete, it's a bit of an extreme, right?
Right.
But for me, it keeps me disciplined and making sure that I take care of my body, take care of myself, and also, this life balance, life work balance, is something that is extremely difficult for high performers.
For sure, but something to make a priority, right?
True. Yeah.
As much as you can, for sure. Well, thank you so much for this conversation, and I'm sure everybody listening is glad that we got it, because you're an incredible person. I'm so glad that you're able to share things with me.
Very, very simple. Very simple person. But Harrison, thank you so much for the opportunity. I really, really enjoyed this, and I wish you all the luck. You're very, very talented. Keep it up.
Thanks so much, Christian. I really appreciate this. We'll chat soon. If you're interested in more content like this, go check out our website at don'tsettleofficial.ca. We're dedicated to providing resources, information, and content designed to assist you on your journey of personal growth, and most of all, to help you live life to the fullest. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll chat with you next time.